All right, we're going to go ahead and get started with our training for today. Welcome to the GSA Schedules program, What You Need to Know. My name is Sarita Dyson, and I am with GSA's Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization, where I am a supervisory small business specialist. And in our office, we'll talk a little bit more about what our office does in just a second. But one thing that I did want to mention before we get started is that if you look in the chat box, the link to the slides have been added. So all the slides that we're going to cover and go through today, they've been added to the chat box. So please be sure to take a look at the chat box so that you can have the slides following this event. So today, joining me in this presentation on the GSA Schedules program is my colleague, Michelle Chandler. And Michelle, I'll allow you to introduce yourself to the group and tell us how you're a part of the Schedules program and how you support it.
Yes, hello everyone and welcome. Thank you for your time today. My name is Michelle Chandler. I'm a contracting officer for the Office of Information Technology category. I'm also a PMP. I work as the Customer Service Center SME. I give live monthly webinars on how to prepare your offer. So after the presentation, and you feel that you are interested in making an offer, submitting an offer for a GSA mass IT contract, I will be your point of contact working with you on how to do that. I'm also in the chat box going to share the link where you can go and register for the monthly training. And what that looks like is basically we will hold your hand. We will help you through every process. If you decide you want to submit an offer, and that goes for everyone. That's documents, you complete them. Once you complete them and you're unsure of the information, you can, call me or chat me, and I can be available to set some time on my calendar to go over the documents with you. Any questions you have, please feel free to call me, email me. Basically, you won't be left alone through the process if you decide the Mass IT Schedules program is for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle, for that wonderful introduction. And before we get ready to introduce the next presenter who will be joining me today, I just wanted to give you a heads up that I did note that there was a link shared at the beginning of this meeting with the access to the slides. What you would do is scroll up to the very first chat, and you would be able to access the link to the files. We will also post the link again at the conclusion of the presentation as well. So again, Michelle, thank you for that wonderful introduction. And we also have on the call today, Mr. Brian Gladney. And so, Brian, if you could just introduce yourself to us, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Sarita. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brian Gladney. I am the Fastlane branch chief for ITC's hardware division located in Atlanta, Georgia. Some of the main responsibilities upon my branch, as well as the offerings that we have on ITC related to Fastlane, are an expedited review of any of your submitted proposals. Much to Michelle's point earlier, if interested in getting a scheduled contract, this is something that would be at your hands, basically, that you would be able to be onboarded with an expedited manner, cutting down typically the review process from 110 days to anywhere between 30 to 45 days. Additionally, also processing any of the modifications that would accompany that contract within a period of 24 to 48 hours. We'll be discussing, obviously, today that, as well as some of the other offerings that we do have, such as Springboard program for any of those interested parties that may have less than 2 years of experience within business. But with that, I do appreciate this opportunity, and I will turn things back over to you, Sarita.
Thank you very much, Brian. Appreciate that. So let's go through our agenda because as you can see, we have a lot of information to share with you. So whether you've come to this webinar already going through the process, you want to get to know more information. I see we have some PTACs on here. So if you're trying to train the trainer, whatever your purpose is, today is particularly special for this event because we have two contracting officers on the line, both Michelle and Brian, who are branch chiefs as well. Brian is a branch chief, that are actually in the weeds of reviewing offers as they come in, reviewing what you're going to submit to get on the GSA schedule. So the level of detail that you're going to get today is going to really be advantageous for you and really help you with this process. So for our agenda today, I'm going to provide you an overview of the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization. We're referred to as OSDBU, and talk about what we do very briefly. And then we're going to touch on the discussion of market research and why it's so important to do that when you're coming into the Schedules program. And we're also going to cover the prerequisites of the program. And then we have Michelle and Brian here to outline the process for getting on the GSA schedule. So the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization, we are the agency's small business advocate. And what we do is we ensure the small businesses are offered the maximum practical opportunities at the prime and subcontracting level. So what does that mean? That means that we work hard to ensure there are as many opportunities for small businesses as possible, right? And so we also try to set you up for success by providing access to free training and resources, similar to the platform that we have here today. So we offer training all throughout the year to support you with marketing to the federal government, conducting market research. Also, if you have questions about navigating the federal procurement market, we're here to support you. And we represent all small businesses, and we also represent the statutory socioeconomic categories of small disadvantaged businesses, women-owned small businesses, service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses, and historically underutilized business owners. So everything within our group is all about small businesses, and we believe in small business first. And every federal agency has an Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization. One of the first tips that I like to give all of our new contractors that may be on the phone, meaning that you're new to the federal procurement market, you're trying to understand where you fit in. It's always good to connect with your OSDBU office. And because that OSDBU office is responsible for carrying out the duties of the Small Business Act, but also being experts and having an understanding of the lay of the land for their particular agency so they can support your needs, so support you with navigating, finding things. So if you came to a GSA small business specialist and you're trying to find out about a particular, procurement that you saw in our forecast tool, we will be able to assist you with that. So those are some of the things that we do. So now that we've talked about OSDBU, I said I was just going to briefly touch on that. Let's move into our first poll question. So before I launch the question, we typically have a mixture of small businesses on the phone. So there's some that know what the schedules is, some that don't know. And so I never assume, so I always like to know, because it's very important that everyone on the phone understands what I'm saying to you. Because a lot of training comes, especially when you're talking about government contracting, it's wrapped in contracting and in the jargon, the wording. And so some of it doesn't make sense to small businesses, and that's a barrier. So our goal today is to plain language it and say it in a way that really creates understanding about this program. So with that, I am going to launch our first poll. And just tell me, do you know what a GSA schedule is? When we're saying the term schedule, do you know what that means? So we're gonna let that run for about 10, 15 seconds more. So just quickly answer yes or no. So I'm going to end it in about 5 more seconds. And I'm going to end the poll and share the results. So we have 62%, you know what it is, 38% that do not. So it's really important that this other 38% understands what it is, so that when we start explaining the process, you can follow along. So what is a GSA schedule? A GSA schedule in basic terms is, or in the contracting jargon, let's start with that. Based on FAR 16.05, the Federal Acquisition Regulation, they are IQ contracts, and they provide for an undetermined quantity within a stated limit of supplies and services to be delivered during a fixed period of time. These contracts require that the government order at least a minimum amount of supplies or services as stated in the contract, but the offers may not exceed a maximum quantity of supplies and services. So essentially, that's what an IDIQ contract is. A schedule is an IDIQ contract. And what it does is it provides our federal agency customers with fast and flexible cost solutions to procure products and services that they need to carry out their mission. The schedules represent approximately 11% in overall federal procurement spending. And that represents billions of dollars, I think to over $20 billion in federal spend. So I'm going to stop there because that is the contracting definition. And I did that for our 62% that knows what a schedule is. That's a recap for you. For those of you that do not know what a schedule is at all, what a GSA schedule is and I like to give, our trainings are live and I go to different websites while we're on. So this is going to be very engaging. So I'm going to go to GSA e-library to illustrate what I mean when I say what is the GSA schedule, because it's really important that everyone gets the information that we've prepared to share today. So when a federal agency needs to make a purchase for supplies or services, right? So they need to make a purchase. What the GSA schedules does is it offers them a way to purchase their supplies and services by working with companies and pre-vetting them, right? So this is the process that we're going to be talking about today, ensuring that you are registered in the right systems, you have the right financials, you can perform the task, pre-vetting you, right? So that you can be one of the contractors. So for example, if I click on information technology, so I'm a federal agency, I need to purchase information technology, and I want to see what's out there. What's it saying is, say I need to get new equipment, laptops. What this is saying is that you are applying to be one of the companies that federal agencies can select or choose from to purchase their supplies or services. So we will go back to our presentation and we will say that, or I will say rather, that so there's several contractors that you're competing with. So you're going to be pre-vetted using the GSA umbrella and saying that you are GSA pre-vetted, which means that you have been negotiated to offer the best price, the best value for the supplies and services that you are planning to offer on the GSA schedule, whether that falls in the IT category, professional services category, transportation, whatever you're providing, that is what that is saying. So now that I have explained the term GSA schedule, I want to launch another quick poll just to make sure we're ready to move on and move into some of the other material. Do you know what a schedule is now that I have explained it? So hopefully, just want everyone to respond to that. And we'll give it like another 2 seconds. And I appreciate everyone for voting. And I'm going to end the poll and share the results. So that's much better. 97% understand, there's 3% that do not. However, we do at GSA OSDBU offer one-on-one counseling and training, so you can reach out to us. And also, Michelle's going to share some more information with you all to make sure that you're really understanding what a GSA schedule is. So let's keep going. So with the schedules program, we talked about that you're competing, right, with a number of companies. So let's talk about that, right? So we looked at all of these contractors. So there's 859 contractors that are offering laptops, desktops, computers, right? About 859. So that's who you would be competing with. So when we go back to our deck, the one thing that I did want to say to you is that you really want to ensure that you are ready to join the schedules program in the sense that you have a clear understanding of the competition factor and the fact that it will take a bit of effort. I think there's a misnomer among a lot of businesses or things that may have been shared. I'm not sure that once I get on a GSA schedule, then, you know, that means that opportunity will just start flowing in. And what the GSA schedule does is position you so that you can seize opportunities, but there does, you know, require a bit of effort to find those opportunities and actually realize them. So with the schedules program, once you get your schedule contract, you must generate at least $25,000 in sales within the first 2 years, and then $25,000 each year thereafter. So it takes time to secure an order. So according to SBA, it takes about 18 to 24 months. So it's really important that you have a clear understanding of your market, and we'll get into that momentarily. But the one thing that I really want you to gather from this slide is the fact that there is a requirement that a federal agency has to source supplies and services through your schedule contract, and it has to be at least $25,000 in sales. Right now, for our schedule suppliers that are offering services and products related to responding to the pandemic, there was a moratorium that was issued where they do not have to meet this requirement right now. However, when things normalize, every contractor will have to meet this $25,000 in sales requirement. And so the one thing that we like to talk about is the importance of data mining and marketing your GSA schedule. So once you get your schedule, actually, you know, the work has just started, you know, because it's really important that you come to the schedules program with your, you know, marketing plan, having your data mining in place, knowing those federal agencies that are open to using the schedules program to source the types of supplies and services that you offer, knowing how much they buy, knowing any policies that could impact your ability to sell supplies and services to the federal marketplace. All of this is really important, making sure that you're in compliance with various security and IT requirements, because all of this is going to set you up for success when you're on the schedules program, because you'll know who your customers are, and you can immediately start marketing your business and adding that caveat that also I am a GSA schedule contract holder. So that's a really important piece that I encourage all of the small businesses on the line to follow. And I have been talking quite a bit, and I have my wonderful colleagues, Michelle and Brian, on the phone. So I just wanted to say, from your contracting officer's perspective, is there anything you wanted to add about the importance of businesses understanding the market and prior to coming to schedules program and doing the work to find opportunity?
Yes, so to add to that, thank you, Sarita. Again, like Sarita shared, coming to the federal market, whatever competitors that you had on outside in the commercial market, please understand your market and your competitors are going to be different. Now that you're competing in the federal market, that's website that Sarita shared for eLibrary, those are your new competitors. So that is who you will be competing with in the federal market. So keep in mind what you do in a commercial world is what you do, but when under the federal market, in a federal marketplace, that's your new competition. Those are your new competitors. Once the GSA schedule is awarded, providing you meet all the requirements and the schedule is awarded, what'll happen is you're going to be required to knock on doors. You have to knock on those doors. You have to pound the pavement. You have to go out there and generate that business. There's training that will be offered to prepare you on how to market your schedule. So don't feel that you will be left alone out there on your own. Brian, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, thank you. So really, to both Sarita's point as well as Michelle's point, having a good understanding of what's actually out there is always going to be the thing to give you that competitive edge. Also, what I would say is establishing relationships not only with your state and local municipalities and government, but also your local SBA office is also a key thing to help give you somewhat of an edge on maybe the requirements that are facing that specific area, region, or sources of business around from a federal or local government standpoint. So keep all of those things in mind, truly understand what your marketplace looks like, and you will almost but surely guarantee your success as you move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian and Michelle, for adding that valuable input to our group today. So in that line, we always in OSDBU encourage you to harness the power of data analytics, right? So we want you to have a solid understanding of your federal market for your product or service. We want you to know the key players, critical policies, initiatives, and any spending budgets that are for your target agencies. For example, I know a lot of IT companies like to look at agencies for TAR scores to see what IT modernization projects that they're pursuing. And that's a way for them to find opportunities, right? So the thing is, you want to use all of this information to be proactive in finding opportunities and generating leads, having a good pulse on what's happening in the federal marketplace. So where can you find all of this information, right? Like, you know, it's like, so how do I find out who's buying what in the federal marketplace? On the SAM.gov data bank, it houses a user interface where you can run reports to find out exactly what's happening for your product and service in the federal market. So what happens is all contract actions valued at $10,000 or more goes into FPDS. And so anything that's in FPDS, you're able to pull a report in the data bank. So this comes from over 90 agency contract writing systems. So if it's a vast majority of agencies report or follow the FAR, there are some that do not, but a vast majority do. And so the FPDS, it gives you a very good pulse of what's happening in the federal marketplace. Our team at OSDBU, we offer training throughout the year and actually give a demonstration to show you how to start using that interface to develop your business plans and to understand where the opportunities are falling. So we encourage you to check out our website for those events. That will be shared with you after this event here as well. There's also the Schedule Sales Query Plus database. And what that database does is it provides sales figures reported by GSA contractors on the GSA schedule. So if every quarter contractors have to submit their sales, and which is how much they've made against their GSA schedule. Michelle, that's quarterly, right? Michelle and Brian?
Yes, that's quarterly.
Okay. So thank you very much. So our contractors have to submit quarterly what they've grossed against the GSA schedule. This information is available through the Schedule Cell Query Plus tool. And it allows you to see who's making what on the GSA schedule. And so this information is important because you can understand the market potential for the schedule. You can understand, do you want to be a prime? Are you able to compete with large businesses? Sometimes you'll see on one schedule that there's a vast majority of business that's dominating the market. maybe that's a way you can peel that onion layer back to figure out why. Maybe it's an IT component and you're a small business. Most small businesses don't have the level of security requirements needed to support that information. But that's all stuff that you'll find out when you do your market research. And this is a way to know or to assess, what your potential would be on this schedules program. So very powerful tools of data and information so that you can build a blueprint for success. Data has become our flashlights in creating blueprints and atlases and maps to get to where we need to go. And you have all this free data at the disposal of your fingertips. I think a challenge with a lot of businesses is just trying to get over learning, getting past being overwhelmed by the jargon and just digging in and trying to be patient to figure out the reports. But it pays off dividends when you take time to use the data, because it really can set you up for success. So let's jump into the schedules program. So prerequisites of the program: you must be in business for 2 years and you must provide 2 years of financial statements. So to get on the schedules program, you would have to provide financial statements outlining 2 years showing that you've grossed $25,000 in sales for the supplies or service that you're applying for to get on the GSA schedules. Those do not have to be government sales, but it just has to show that you've made sales against those particular requirements. Michelle, is there anything that you wanted to add here for must be in business for 2 years? Is there anything that I left out there, or Brian?
No, except the springboard. We have a new startup springboard. So if you want to participate in that, you do not have to meet the requirement of being in business for 2 years or more.
That's
the new
right.
startup springboard allow companies with less than 2 years of experience. The financial documents are the same. It doesn't matter how many of you in 2 years or more or less than 2 years, you must meet the financial determination, because GSA, when we vet you, we need to make sure that, as Sarita mentioned earlier, that you are financially capable of completing the award, if that makes sense. Brian, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just added on to that little tidbit about Springboard. So primarily, since you're not necessarily responsible for the corporate experience to be 2 years, what the Springboard program allows you to do is be able to utilize your personal past performance experience, right? So because it's not under the incorporated name, you're still able to say, hey, I've performed this type of work, whether the example be like cybersecurity work, cloud related services in my previous work at XYZ Corporation, right? You're able to utilize that in lieu of the 2% for, excuse me, not 2%, but 2 years for corporate experience. But that would be the only other thing that I would add, but pretty much spot on.
Yep. And Will, Brian, I'm going to pivot over to you to talk about the startup springboard. So for all of our IT suppliers on the phone, they are providing an alternative to this prerequisite. So if you're seeking an IT Schedule 70 contract, or you're to offer IT services, some of those nuances apply to you, and we'll cover those in the next slide. But if you're non-IT, you must be in business for 2 years to provide those 2 years of financial statements. You should also have the ability to demonstrate past performance, right? So we want to make sure that you're experienced in selling and offering these supplies and services that you're wanting to sell to our federal customer agencies through your scheduled contract. So with that, there's a couple of ways you can show your past performance. One is through your CPARS, that's the Contractor Performance Assessment Reporting System. And so you have to have 3 or more assessment reports available in CPARS, and that would represent number 1, contracts or orders completed within 3 years of the date of the offer submission. So you would have to have a CPAR on 3 separate contracts or orders that were handled within the 3 years, within the past 3 years. And then it would have to be for work that's similar in scope for the products and services that you are applying for in the GSA schedule. So if you are wanting to sell furniture, then you would want your selling of furniture in the CPARS to to represent what you're wanting to do through the schedules program. And then if you have anything negative in your CPARs, you're encouraged to address any negative feedback. You may also provide for past performance, for those of you that do not fall in the IT Schedule 70 category, 3 to 5 customer references. You will need to at least 3 to respond. And what you would do is they would be asked questions in terms of work that you've performed similar to the scope and products and services that you want to offer under the schedules program. So essentially understanding that you have the experience providing customer references, and then with those references, you would want to contact them and let them know that they would be potentially contacted. And lastly, if you do not have the 3 customer references, you are now able to substitute customer references for relevant work performed by predecessor companies or key personnel. So there's a couple of ways that you can demonstrate past performance. I know we just said a lot and gave you a lot of information, but just to recap, a prerequisite is to be in business for 2 years, provide 2 years of financial statements. You have to have an ability to demonstrate past performance. So that's either through CPARs, customer references, or customer references for relevant work performed. So those are the 3 options. And within those 3 options, you would have wanted it to be performed within the last 3 years to the date of the offer submission. So when you're getting ready to submit your offer, you just want that work to be relevant for the last 3 years and to be within the size and scope that you're performing, that you're going to be trying to offer through the schedules program. Your products must be commercially available and products must be compliant with the Trade Agreements Act. The last thing I wanted to say about this slide is that there is also some relaxing on this requirement for those companies that are offering supplies and services that are in a response to the pandemic. So there are some other ways that you can provide your financial information and demonstrate your past performance. And we will be sure that that information is shared with you at the conclusion of this presentation. Michelle and Brian, did you have anything else you wanted to add before we moved on to the startup springboard slide?
I do not.
Nothing on my end.
So I will have my colleague Brian walk us through the startup springboard for those of you that are in the IT grouping. Brian?
Yes, absolutely. Again, with everybody, if you are trying to add something to a IT category schedule standpoint, right, from whether or not be your products or services or things of that nature, if you lack that 2 years of corporate experience, remember you can use your professional experience as a substitute, right? Primarily the things that you want to make sure that you cover within that description or utilizing that past performance experience is a detailed perspective of what's going to actually support what it is that you're trying to actually add on schedule, right? You want to make sure that you give the most detailed description that you absolutely can so that that responsible contract specialist or contracting officer is able to look at what you're capable of doing without a shadow of a doubt and be able to add things on without having any sense of confusion or who you are as a company or what you're actually capable of providing. So providing that level of confidence there is going to help you of course get things on schedule sooner than later. Obviously that we have a link for more information on the Springboard program at the www.gsa.gov/springboard website. But the biggest thing that I would say is open communication amongst your contract specialist and your contracting officer, as well as any of the other, great points of contact that we have, such as myself or Michelle, would be more than happy to help you walk through that and make sure that we clear up any kind of cobwebs, any kind of confusion, and really just help you within the process of getting your schedule. Michelle, is there anything else within the Springboard program that you would like to touch on?
Yes, I would like to reiterate. Thank you, Brian. I would like to reiterate that the financial requirements are the same for companies with 2 years of experience, companies with less than 2 years of experience. Because again, the financial determination will allow us to understand and assure us that you are able to perform the work required.
Great, thank you so
And I'm
much.
gonna turn it back to you, to you, Bryant.
Oh yeah, no, I greatly appreciate you adding that aspect as well. Once again, just painting the clearest picture of who you are as a company, whether or not you be extremely new or, you know, more of a veteran company, is always going to be important, just to any of us here within the acquisition aspect of gaining a contract. And I will hand things back over to Sarita.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Michelle. I told you guys we were in for a treat today. We have some really, really good information. So I hope you are taking notes and capturing all of this, because these Michelle and Brian are the ones that are the experts here. So we are so grateful to have you here. So let's keep going. Registrations and certifications, right? So we've talked about prerequisites, right? So now let's move on to registrations and certifications. So you have to, so there's an update here. So you'll need a DUNS number right now because you need a DUNS number to register in SAM. However, as of April 4th or starting April 4th, we are moving away from the DUNS number and we are going to transition over to something called the unique entity ID, also referred to as your UEI number. So for those of you who are already registered in SAM, you will already have both your DUNS number and your UEI, right? But if you are not registered in SAM prior to this transition on April 4th, you will need a DUNS number and then you will register in SAM, and SAM will automatically issue you a UEI number. If you're looking for more information on the federal families transition to the UEI, you can visit fsd.gov and follow the instructions in this deck. Again, the slides will be shared with you at the conclusion of this presentation, so no worries there. The one thing that I want you to take from this slide is we want to ensure that your SAM registration is up to date. That's what we want to make sure of. The next thing is this. I wanted to spend a little time talking about this in the sense that on the schedules program, paper never touches hand, in the sense that everything is handled electronically. So when you submit your offer, right? Your offer of, this is my best offer to you to sell supplies and services at this price under the GSA schedule contract, and I have this experience. This is all of what we're talking about, the process we're putting together. So for you, all the documents that we're going to talk about next, right? For you to be able to upload that information into GSA's system, you will need a FAS ID. And so in order to get a FAS ID, that is offered through our websites. And the one thing that I want you, and there's a link here with the user guide that outlines the registration process for obtaining a FAS ID. And so when whoever is applying for the FAS ID, the one important thing that I want you to grab from this slide is they have to be listed as one of your government POCs in SAM. So they have to be listed as one of these POCs in SAM. Otherwise, the system will generate an error message. You also want to ensure that when you're registering for your FAS ID, that you are listed as one of the POCs as you are listed as your name and your email. Forgive me, my goodness. Your name and your email are listed as in your GSA contract as the authorized negotiator. And you want to ensure your DUNS and your UEI is correct. So again, just to summarize the slide, because I know it's a lot of information that we're giving you. When you are putting together your offer, you are going to use GSA's electronic systems. To access those electronic systems to submit your offer, you need to register for a FAS ID. which is a multi-factor authentication process, right? And so you're going to get a user ID and a password. In order for that user ID and password to generate, whoever is applying for the FAST ID, they would have to be listed as one of these POCs that's listed in this slide. Once that POC accesses the FAST ID, then they can add other users. But that's the most important thing, is that you want to make sure that what's in SAM is going to jive with who's applying and registering for the FAST ID. So moving on to the required training. So we had our prerequisites, and then we have registering in SAM, UEI. We have getting a FAST ID so that you can upload your offer. Now you're in the process. So we're in process now. We're talking about training. So you have your pathways to success and your readiness assessment. And so your pathways to success, it's just schedule specific training. It talks about the multiple wards. Schedule process gives you an overview of the program. My understanding is it typically takes about an hour or so to complete. And then you receive a certificate, and you would take that certificate and you would upload it to the e-offer system, right? Because everything is handled electronically. And then the readiness assessment. This is another training that you would take. And this training, what it does is it makes sure that you understand the market potential within the schedules program. So you will answer questions like, how many companies are on this one particular schedule? Then you'll have to go to the schedule sales query and outline how much are those businesses making, because we want to make sure you have a clear understanding and expectation of the requirements of the program, and level setting expectations for you to understand, is this the right decision for your business? The one thing that I want you to take from this slide is that when you're submitting your certificates and uploading them in the e-offer system, you want to make sure that they're completed within the year that you're submitting your application. One thing that we talked about when we were addressing the FAST ID is that with the schedules program, again, everything is handled electronically. Another item, and I would love for Michelle and Brian to touch on this, is that offers are reviewed in the order that they are received. So typically the CEO will get your offer, and if there's anything that's missing or incorrect, they can reject that offer for you to correct it. Now what happens is when that offer is rejected, say 1,000 more businesses come in and they submit an offer as well, then you have to wait until they get back to reviewing your corrected offer. So it's really, really, really important that in addition to taking this training, that whatever vehicle that you're interested in offering your supplies and services under, or what have you for the schedules program, that everyone read the solicitation from cover to cover to really understand what's expected, outline any questions that you have about the process. And of course, we have resources here. Michelle and Brian, did you want to speak any more about the there?
Yeah, just to reiterate, in order for your offer to be reviewed without being rejected, but most withdrawn, we require you to upload every opportunity. There's an opportunity to upload, please upload a document, because when we receive the offer, and if the information is not sufficient enough to make a determination, we will contact you and ask you to withdraw your offer and resubmit, or we would reject it ourselves. But for the most part, we'll ask you to withdraw it. In addition to that, you have the training that I'll provide to assist you with that, to make sure that you are able to upload the documents. And sometimes you may get to a situation where they require a document, but it's not applicable to you. So just type a document, upload it, and not applicable, because the system will not allow you to move forward unless you upload something. And that's all I have. Brian, do you have anything else to add?
Oh, no. I think you both covered that perfectly. So thank you for the opportunity.
I turn it back to you, Sarita.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Appreciate that. So your pathways to success and readiness assessment can be accessed at the GSA.gov Mass Roadmap. In fact, just a plug here, if you go to www.gsa.gov/Mass Roadmap, you can find a lot of good information that we're discussing here with respect to getting on the schedules program. You can look at the document, and it really just breaks down the offer process step by step. So please visit the website, not just to access the trainings, but to also just follow and get more information on preparing your offer. So now we're going to jump into the required documents section. So I know that, I've covered a lot of information. We have covered a lot of information. So just want to take a pause here because this is where we get into assembling everything that we've discussed and more so into the meat of this discussion here. So just really quickly, your 2 years of financial statements, we discussed that. So it's your balance sheet, your income, net loss sheet. It just outlines your financials. You want to show that you've grossed $25,000 in sales there. Your agent authorization letter. So if you're selling products, what this does is this is your agent authorization letter. So if you choose to have another party to complete your schedule offer on your behalf, well, then you would have to sign the agent authorization letter to outline the specific designations that this person who's operating on your behalf of your company can perform within the scope of your schedule. Then you upload your certificates to your readiness and pathways to success training. And then you add any of your past performance. Again, we talked about CPARs, narrative custom references, or outlining any relevant work performed. And for large businesses, if you plan to gross $750,000 or more, then you have to submit a subcontracting plan outlining how you are going to provide opportunities to small business in the socioeconomic small business categories. And so now we're going to get into pricing. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to our experts, Michelle, to lead the discussion on the next document, which is the CSP1. Michelle?
Yes, I was on mute. Okay, so the CSP1 is one of the documents. It allows us to identify your sales. Please read over this document and fill it out as best you can. If you have any questions, you can contact, I'm gonna put a link here to contact me or the NCSC. We'll help you with that. But this document help us, give us a snapshot of you and your business and what kind of financials are, what your financial status is, if that makes sense. Brian, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So your CSP document is going to give the clearest and most accurate picture of how you conduct business. It's going to cover any and everything as far as who is your MFC, which is your most favored customer, what kind of discounting may be issued out to them, whether or not it be from a volume standpoint, a prompt payment standpoint, just really how you actually go about conducting your commercial sales, right? The main purpose of that is GSA has a main requirement that we request equal to or better what you're offering your most favored customer. And as a result, this gives us a good idea about where you stand as a company and how we can go about helping you to best tool and utilize your schedules contract to be competitive within that market. Much to Sarita's point earlier when she had pointed out that you may have competitors on schedule amongst the number of about 800 and some odd. What we want you to do is we want you to have success meeting that $25,000 in sales requirement. And as a result of that, what we do is we require that complete transparency through your CSP, through your past performance, through any and other supportive documentation that you're able to provide in order to help you do so. Mainly because when you win, GSA wins. And it really, for the most part, is our duty to have the most up-to-date offerings on schedule so that it can not only help our government customers, but even potentially help our government customers, specifically the warfighter. With that being said, I'll hand things back over to you, Sarita.
Thanks so much. I think we're going to move into our next document, which is your price proposal template. And before, Michelle, I'll just hand it over to you at this point, Michelle, to go over the price proposal. Thank you.
Yeah. So the price and proposal template is another way for GSA to identify your commercial practices. And it's self-explanatory depending on the product or service that you're going to offer. Again, please read the document and answer the questions, fill in the blanks. If you need assistance, we'll be here to help you. Also, too, if you're offering products, the federal government, for the most part, is moving towards energy efficient. So we do not take objections if you add another line, a column, and identify that the product that you're offering is energy efficient or not. We do not take objections if you want to add that. And at the bottom of this, Bryant touched on your most favorite customer. We need to know who your most favorite customer is. This documentation will allow us, along with the CSP, will allow us to identify your most favorite customer. And again, GSA advantage is to be better, receive like discounts or better discounts. So if you have a most favorite customer and the most favorite customer is, I don't know, the Army, and you offer them a 10% discount, GSA would like to receive that same 10% discount or better. So the discount ranges, if you see that GSA discount ranges without IFF. And IFF is basically a 0.075% fee, and it's identified in this chart here that we allow you to add that fee on to your prices, so that if you have an item and it's $100, if it's $75, I'm sorry, and we allow you with that IFF to charge $100 to your customers. What that looks like is once you receive the payment of the $100, you will keep $75, that's the price you charge, and then the $25 you would mail that into GSA for your IFF. And quantity volume discounts is here. So with quantity volume discounts, based on the amount of sales, the amount of the award, if the amount of the award is like, I don't know, $1 million, you're able to offer quantity discounts. And what that looks like is if the award is $250,000 or more, and in addition to the 10% discount that you're already offering, you will offer them another 2%. If you purchase this much in products or services, here's an additional 2% onto that. And it's, again, the document is pretty much self-explanatory. Do your best to fill it out. And if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to us. That's all I have. Brian, do you have anything you would like to add?
No, I think you hit everything spot on. It is a very straightforward document. This is obviously a good example of if you're proposing services. The only thing that I would say is please, by all means, if you're capable of offering additional discounting, whether or not it be within the quantity and volume or the prompt payment aspect of it, discounts are never going to hurt you, especially as being new offers or offers on schedule. It's always going to make you competitive, because especially from a government customer standpoint, the biggest thing that they are going to focus on is not only the need of what they're actually trying to procure, but then also the pricing of it. So please, by all means, take advantage of these discounts. And if you haven't considered it before, please do as you move forward. And that's all I have.
Turn it back to you, Sarita.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, guys, for that excellent introduction, because, you know, this is, like Michelle said, this part of it is what helps you all to be successful. So I hope you are capturing all of those great tips that they're providing you with, because that's really going to set you up for success. And if you could just hang in there, because I know we're coming up 4 minutes at the top of the 3 o'clock hour. So we're going to keep going through the documents and giving you more tips. And so now we're going to go through your pricing support document, your commercial price list. And I'm going to kind of take those because there's a point that I wanted to make. So when you submit your CSP1, which we talked about in our previous slide here, right? So that outlines your commercial sales with Brian and Michelle so eloquently explain to us, you have your CSP1, so that's your commercial sales. Then you have your price proposal template, right? And it outlines, what your most favorite customer pricing is. And so you're giving all of this information. And then once you've given that information, then you have to document and verify what you've put in those templates. So that's verified through submitting your invoices and your statement of work. So within your offer, you have to submit an invoice and a statement of work, and you want it to be dated within the current year. And then also you have to submit your commercial price list, your market rate sheet, whichever applies. The point that I want you to take from this is whatever you put as your commercial prices in your CSP1, your discount prices in your pricing document, price proposal document, it has to be verified and make sense and be in your pricing support where you're providing your invoices and in your market rate sheet. So if you put a commercial price for one thing in the CSP1 and then your commercial price list said something different, it creates a discrepancy and you do risk the chance of your offer being rejected. So, it's better to take your time, ask questions, reach out to your CEO, connect with us, your small business office, to help you navigate who you need to contact so we can get those specific questions answered so that you can submit this right. Michelle and Brian, is there anything else that you wanted to say about that there?
I do not. Brian, do you have something to share?
No. I think that was spot on. Thank you.
Awesome. And so, Michelle, I'll hand it over to you to take over from here on the technical proposal and the professional compensation plan.
On the technical proposal, what GSA look for, again, is we don't know you or your performance. So we require you to submit the documentations that we are call for in the solicitation. So when you get to the solicitation, there's a section with technical proposal questions. There are questions there. We would like for them to be 2 pages or less, but sometimes, that cannot be done. GSA take no objection if you submit those questions in more than 2 pages, but if you can stick to the 2 pages, that would be fine. So when you read the solicitation, there's some technical proposal questions and requirements that you must complete. When it comes to the professional compensation plan, every company have that, so you don't have to go and reinvent that. And that basically covers like paid leave or anything like that, bonuses or any perks that you offer. The compensation plan, you have that already. So just submit what you have in a compensation plan. And Brian, is there anything I left out?
No, you hit every point.
Sarita,
I'm gonna hand it back to you.
Sounds good. All right. And we are at the home stretch of the last that we wanted to talk about with respect to the required documents. Michelle, I guess if you could close us out on the letter of supply, which is required, and previous rejections and cancellations.
Perfect. So with the letter of supply, if you are offering products, and this is only applicable for products. So if you're offering products, again, as Sarita stated at the top of the presentation, all GSA mass IT schedule contracts are IDIQ, indefinite delivery and indefinite quantity. So that means we have an endless amount of supply products that we may call on you to provide. So that letter of supply submitted, it's a letter of supply, it's a sample in the solicitation. There's some attachments. So when you get to the letter of supply for products only, send that letter of supply to your manufacturer. For example, if it's Dell and you're selling Dell laptops, submit that letter of supply. They will complete that letter of supply, and it will identify that they will offer you, support you, provide endless amount, indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity of supplies. That must be signed and dated by the manufacturer, and you upload that in the section of the e-offer. A previous FSS rejection is just transparency, because if you submitted an offer and it was rejected, we have a copy of it. We're just asking you to be transparent. It does not omit you from submitting another offer. It is just allowing you to be transparent. Now, if you are in the process, like you received a rejection letter and you want to submit another offer, but you're maybe unsure, please submit your offer along with that rejection letter and allow GSA to make the determination if you're qualified and can move forward. With that said, don't fear the fact that your contract was rejected. Just submit the rejection letter. Be transparent, submit your offer, and if we have any questions, we'll contact you. Now, previous cancellations include a copy of the cancellation letter and notification. For low sales, whatever it is, it's same applicable to the rejection. Just be transparent. If you have a rejection letter or cancellation letter, include that in your offer so that we can make the determination. Current federal sales in excess of $25,000 is evident by copies of contractual documents that identify the federal entity and the date and value of the product and services. A marketing plan, the steps you plan to make to generate sales through a new GSA schedule contract. And that's just examples for reason your contract was canceled. Again, submit that, because if you submitted an offer before, we have a copy and we are aware that contract was canceled or it was rejected. And again, we just want you to be transparent. Don't fear because your contract was rejected or canceled. Submit it along with the letter and allow GSA to make the determination if you're going to move forward or not. Brian, you have anything?
Nothing from my end.
Sharita, I'm gonna turn it back to you.
Thanks, Michelle. This is fun, but the one thing that I wanted to say also about previous cancellation is that, we talked about in the beginning that sales requirement, right? So you have to generate $25,000 within your first 2 years and then $25,000 each year thereafter. So one thing, and we talked about the importance of marketing, creating a business plan and the tools and resources that we have available to you. So one thing that I want you to take from this is, why not start off with the business plan and set yourself up for success? Because if there are, challenges with that, you would have to come back with some sort of business plan anyway. So we encourage you to put those together. So Michelle is going to talk about some things, key issues that's happening in our federal space that's important for our federal contractors. But before I transition to those updates and clicking around a bit, this closes out the piece of our discussion surrounding the schedule process. However, we are going to move into our Q&A period where we want to address your questions. So for those of you that can hang on, I know we went 5 minutes over, but we really wanted to make sure we gave you some good information to set you up for success. So for those of you that can stay on, just hang tight. In about another 2-3 minutes, we'll move over to our Q&A. So Michelle, I'll hand it over to you to talk about some important things happening in government contracting in the government space that our participants need to know about. Michelle.
Yes, so everyone is aware that we are in the middle, hopefully at the end of this pandemic. So because of the pandemic, President Biden issued this mandate, and you guys are aware of that. Right now, currently, I think we're going to be in a position to where, if we're not already, I think the Supreme Court denied that every contractor had to be responsible to be vaccinated. I think that is going to be handed back to the commercial world, the private industry. They're going to make those determinations if their employees should be vaccinated or not. But keep in mind, there is a mandate out there. And as employers, be aware of these mandates. So whatever the current status is, you must apply because of the president initiated that vaccine mandate, that flows down because it's the federal government, it flows down to you. So be aware of any current mandates out there when it comes to the vaccine, because that will affect your contract. It is in contracts now. We have it added. We may have another refresh based on the findings of the mandate. Now, what refreshes every time GSA update their contract, we call it a refresh. Right now, you're going to be working with refresh 9. So what I want you to take away from this slide, there's a vaccine mandate issued by the president under Executive Order 14042. So make sure that you are aware of what's going on out there. The next slide. Section 889. Brian, I'm gonna let you touch on that. I understand what it is, but Brian, you may have the latest because I haven't looked at this in about 4 months.
Yeah, no problem at all. So really just a quick summation of it and being conscientious of everyone's time. Section 889 is reference to the National Defense Authorization Act for prohibited items, whether it be telecommunications, video surveillance, services and equipment, right? So for the most part, it's just an agreement mainly between yourself and the government, or a stipulation within doing business that you won't provide any of those prohibited items. Obviously, more detail can actually be found at the attached website, but for the most part, it's in order for a sense of national security that you won't be providing any of those prohibited items. So for further detail, I would say go to the site just so you can be up on the latest technology that is actually prohibited. However, if there's any other needed communication or clarification on it, you very well can contact Michelle, myself, or take advantage of some of our other services like our vendor support center that will be able to go into even further detail for more specific questions. So with that, I'll turn things back over to you, Michelle and Sarita.
Is there a next slide?
Yes.
Oh, the monthly webinar live training. The link is at the bottom. Again, you will have acquisition professionals available to assist you through the process. There's an NCSC phone number. We can share that with you guys as well. So if you're going through your documents and you want questions about how to complete the CSP, contact the help desk. And what they'll do is elevate the call to me, and I'll be able to answer your questions. But the monthly live webinar, the next one is scheduled for February 10th. We'll go over the solicitation. We're taking pages out of the solicitation and we're going over it with you. But like Sarita said at the beginning of the presentation, you need to read the document in its entirety, because it's important for us to understand that you understand how to complete the solicitation. Because again, you're making a proposal for an award of a federal government contract, and we need to understand that you are aware of what you're doing and you can be in compliant with the requirements of the contract. And the only way you can do that is to read and understand. But if you don't understand, you have a live person that you can talk to explain it to you. That's all I have. Brian, you have anything else?
Nothing further from me.
Thanks, Brian and Michelle.
I'm gonna turn it back to you.
Thank you very much. That's very good information. So kind of like to add on to what Michelle said, the webinars that we're having today, this is broad strokes overview, introducing you to the program. But then Michelle's workshops are going to really, like she said, dive into the actual paperwork and spend a little more time. And this is a good collaborative relationship because you get an overview of the program with us. You get the materials and documents you need so that when you come to Michelle's workshop, you can come with some really, really intricate questions that'll really help you with putting together your offer. So you would have wanted to look at those documents so that you can come with, and walk away from Michelle's training with a greater understanding of what you need to do to prepare an offer that hopefully you can just submit one time without being rejected. So with that, we'll move over into OSDBU live virtual events and webinars. So Michelle offers her workshop, and that's a part 2, more detailed. And then we also offer events in OSDBU throughout the year, so we encourage you to check out our gsa.gov/OSDBU events page. And then we also encourage you to take a look at our subcontracting directory. So oftentimes some contractors may find schedules is not right for them at this time. And so you want to look into subcontracting where, you know, large businesses provide subcontracting opportunities that helps some of those newer companies that are trying to familiarize themselves with the federal procurement process. Subcontracting may offer more low-hanging fruit and accessible opportunities for you until you get ready to join the schedules program if you deem that it's not right for your business at this point in time. So that's our subcontracting directory. And then we also want you to take a look at our forecast tool. So there's opportunities that you can find on our forecast tool. So it provides forward-looking information. So these are requirements that are planned. They haven't been finalized, but why this is important to you, because it gives you a pulse for what's happening and what's getting ready to come so you can get ready. So I'm always about being proactive, right? Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. So know what's out there, know the lay of the land, know the opportunities, build your roadmap for success. And this is another data tool that you can use to get there. We also have our OSDBU fact sheets. And so this fact sheet here outlines the process for getting on the GSA schedule. And this was completed by our friends in FAST. And this outlines a lot of the information we gave you with access to pertinent websites. And this is located on our fact sheet page, where we also offer market research. There's a quick guide for how do you do that? How do you use it? What's the terminology? Marketing to the federal government, using the forecast tool. And there's also a resource for finding an array of small business resources in terms of trying to find financing, NAICS code, building a business plan, everything. So please visit our fact sheet page because we developed those for you. So before we transition into our Q&A, I just want to launch one more quick poll. And I want to know, was this training helpful to you? So just really quickly, if you could just quick yes or no, did you find this helpful to what you were trying to do? And we'll just let that run for another 5 seconds. And I am going to end the poll and I'm going to share the results. So that's positive. 98% found it to be helpful. For the 2% that did not, we will follow up. We have an endeavor to issue surveys to understand more of what's resonating with our audience and things that are not, and what we are doing well and what we need to add. So just know that those pain points, if you had any, will be addressed. And also we encourage you to use the small business resources to meet with someone in a one-on-one setting, because sometimes that's more productive in helping to achieve understanding. So with that, we're going to transition over into our Q&A period. And I am going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Mr. Kevin Pope, to walk us through questions. Kevin?
Thank you, Sarita. Thank you to those who, to Michelle and Mr. Gladney, fruitful and valuable information. There's a lot of questions, and I, based on the time, have some questions for you both. First question is there a CPARS requirement for getting on GSA schedule?
Brian, you want to answer that one?
Sorry, I'm over here talking on mute. So question, you said, is there a CPARS requirement
For getting on GSA schedule?
You know, I will actually have to go in for a refresher on that. I don't necessarily believe that there is a CPARS requirement, but
okay.
Brian, oh, go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, so the answer is no, it's not a CPARS requirement. because only government, if you work for the federal government, if you had any commercial business with the federal government, they submit CPARs. So no, it's not a requirement. It's just identifying your performance. If you finish the job on time and if you finished it within budget. But when it comes to past performance, GSA in our solicitation, the attachments offer an opportunity for an alternative when it comes to identifying your past performance. So there's a document there that must be completed. So no, it's not a requirement to have CPARs. They can only be submitted by federal agencies if you work with them. I hope that answered your question.
It does. Thank you so much. Second question, is the Springboard program only for IT-related products and services?
It does fall under the MAS program, and I think, I'm pretty sure it's just a MAS program. Brian, do you have any updated information?
Yes, as far as I know, Fastlane and Springboard are both related solely towards the IT aspect of getting a GSA scheduled contract. Obviously, with mass offerings, it does kind of blend the offerings in which any vendor can join schedule, but it is more so IT related.
Outstanding, outstanding. Next question. How long does the application process take for Springboard or Fastlane?
Brian, that's all you.
Yeah, no problem. So the actual application aspect, it really is, Springboard is one and the same with Fastlane. We try to make sure that we treat them the same. So from an offer standpoint and submission, we try to keep that review process within a period of about 30 to 45 days. The only things that typically will, from that standpoint, kind of extend that evaluation standpoint are if certain sins or offerings are being added, such as, of course, if there's a cloud related sin requirement or a cybersecurity. Each one of those have their own separate technical evaluation standpoint, so that can extend that evaluation period of time. However, any and everybody can be rest assured that once you submit something in from a review standpoint, it is going to take the utmost attention of your assigned contract specialist and contracting officer. And the only thing that really can hinder that other time window outside of those technical evaluations is a lack of communication when further detail is needed, i.e., of course, finances, whether or not it be past performance, information that needs to be further addressed. So open lines of communication will always cut down on any and all delays.
Outstanding, outstanding. I think this was discussed in the presentation, but I'm going to pose the question. What type of financial statements are needed when submitting for MAS or Fastlane?
So MAS and Fastlane, it's kind of like the same. The MAS contract, yeah. So the MAS contract, you can apply for Fastlane under the MAS contract, and you are correct. The documents are identified in the slide deck. So you would need, yeah. So just go back to the slide deck and take a look at that. But they are there, and if you have additional questions, please feel free to reach out.
Outstanding, outstanding. Here's a question, and it's tied to a company that has a MAS, but it's not under GSA. Here it is. If my company has a California MAS, can I leverage that to get on the federal GSA schedule?
Okay, so you do not have a GSA schedule. So whatever you do on the commercial world, when you apply for the GSA MAS schedule, you can incorporate that by showing us this is what you did in the commercial market. So when it comes to leveraging, you can share that information, and we will take that information and allow us under the MAS schedule to identify what are your commercial practices. So when it comes to leveraging, I wouldn't use the word leverage. I would just say, once you apply for the GSA contract, take what you did in your commercial market and put that in the documentations that you're going to submit, and then we'll make a determination based on how you work, what are you doing commercially, and if or your discounts that you offer. Brian, do you have anything else you would like to add to that?
It is spot on. Thanks, Michelle.
Outstanding. Good answer. Good answer. Next question. This is tied to good financial standing. What is, if there's such, what is the standard for determining a good financial standing of a small business?
So what that looks like is, as Sarita mentioned, and we mentioned it several times, you must make $25,000 a year in sales. You must do that. If not, you have an opportunity for your contract to be canceled. So what that looks like is our GSA contracts are for 20 years. You get a 5-year base period, and then you get 3 5-year options thereafter. They're not automatic. You have to qualify for these 3 5-year options on this evergreen, and they are called, oh God, it's on the tip of my tongue, but we'll move on. So with that said, because you have that 5-year base period and those 3 5-year options, that means you have to have at least $125,000. That way, again, we know that you can perform the scope of the contract. So that information and determination is made by GSA Credit and Finance Office. So what that looks like is when you submit your offer and your documentation, the financial documentation identified in this slide deck, once you submit that offer with the financial documentation, we will forward it to our finance, GSA Credit and Finance Office. They will reach out to you separately. So in addition, simultaneously, in addition to working the offer that you submitted, you'll also be working with credit and finance for them to make a financial determination. But I'm sure if you have at least $125,000 where you can show that I have this much money available, that you can perform the scope of the contract, scope of the award, you will be okay. Now, again, it's a addition to credit and finance. So once you submit your documentation, anything you need outside of that, you'll be working with the credit and finance. So when it comes to a good credit standing, credit and finance will better be able to answer that. But I would always focus on, just like your regular credit, you want to make sure you have the funds available and the bills are paid on time. Any negative financial information out there will be going through the credit and finance office, but I'm pretty sure they will give you an opportunity to mitigate whatever it is. But again, because it's credit and finance, they kind of handle that. And they have a date. So if they ask you for information within 3 days, they'll close your case, they will close your case. The contracting officer can reopen it, but we prefer that you work with them and give them the documents and the time that they ask. Brian, would you like to add any updated information on that?
Yeah, no, pretty much spot on with what you said. So from the proposal review standpoint, just make sure that you have your most up-to-date profit and balance, profit and loss sheets, as well as balance sheets, anything that may be incorporated from an invoice standpoint. As Michelle said, the finance department will be in constant communication with you if there's something that is further needed to support. And then, of course, after your the scheduled contract has been issued, just maintaining that first that $25,000 in sales in the first 2 years, and then $25,000 in sales each year thereafter will keep you in compliance with your financial responsibilities. With that, I'll hand things back over to you, Kevin.
Outstanding, outstanding. I think we've got room for maybe 2. All right. Next question is
Kevin,
yes.
if at all possible, if we could just grab one more.
There you go. I wanted to say one. All right. This should be an easy one. In regards to GSA schedules, firms, state and local governments can utilize GSA schedules.
Yes, the mass schedule, and I think the security schedule is included. So with that said, once the contract is awarded, submit your offer, your contract is awarded, providing it is awarded, you'll be assigned a IOA and a ACO. Those administrative people hired by GSA work for GSA to help you administer your contract. We used to do site visits, but now I think everything is online because of the pandemic. But once you contract is awarded, reach out to them and ask them for a list of buyers who is eligible to use GSA contract. Once they make the determination of the companies and the education facilities and the Army bases or military bases, whatever eligible GSA user in your area, ask them for a copy of that list, and you can go out to them and market your contract. So always have a good marketing presentation available, email, because again, with the pandemic, there's not a lot of travel. And once you get that contact information, call them, introduce yourself, submit a presentation, who your company is. I've just been awarded a contract, and here's what I offer. Would you like to schedule some time to talk? That'll help you a lot. Brian, do you want to add anything?
I couldn't have said it better myself, Michelle. I think you hit every point spot on.
Kevin, I'm gonna turn it back to you.
Thank you. Thank you. At this point, this closes our Q&A, and I will turn it back to Mrs. Sarita.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Again, my colleague, we will, Rocio, if you wouldn't mind, if you're there, if you could just drop the link to the to where everyone can find the slides really, really quickly. And then I will, while you're doing that, because these are live trainings here, I'm going to share my screen for everybody who stood on for the entire time. And I am going to show you how to get to our training really quickly. So if you go to www.gsa.gov/OSDBU and you click on our page, you click on training resources at the top here. And my computer is moving slow. There we go. And you click all of our webinars and events here. So you can sit and watch recordings at your leisure, and the slide decks are here. So if you click there, the webinar recording and all FAQs are listed below, and there's several. What we do is if we can't get to your question in this setting, we add them to our website. So again, that's gsa.gov/OSDBU event. You click on training resources at the top of the page, and then you're brought to this page, you click on getting on schedule, and you have resources there. So with that, we thank you all for joining us today. We apologize for going over time, but we hope we gave you information that will set you up for success. I bid you adieu. I wish you well. Thank you to the team for the excellent presentation. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.